I didn't see it until I got everything.
Good evening, y'all. I am at the beach. I'm at Pawleys Island, South Carolina. So things look different, and I'm having a couple of cocktails, kicking back, but I still want to do my Thursday night Adaptable Entrepreneur Show. So I'm here with my friend Mark Milen. Say hello to Mark, y'all.
Hello, everyone.
He is the founder of Innovate Holdings Group. And Mark, I'm going to get you to talk about your background. And look, Mark doesn't want to talk about this, but I'm going to make him. I'm going to tell y'all, he graduated from high school when he was 16. And then he went on to college and wasn't even old enough to get his first job after he graduated. He had to wait. Okay, so Mark, I talked about it even though you don't want to. So spin that out and tell us how it all came about.
Thanks, Lisa. I think what makes it even more interesting is that at 16, you don't really know how to study or to prepare for college. Not to reference the fact that you're way younger to date anybody or to get really friends who are much older than you are.
Yeah.
But I almost flunked out, 16 or not. I almost flunked out my first semester. I failed the chemistry test, and I thought that teaching assistant was totally against me, and I was going to submit my test for regrade. And believe it or not, they found more mistakes, and actually I got lower score after.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. So
I had to work my tail off to get that degree.
Did you continue being a chemistry major?
I switched ever so slightly into biochemistry, but
Oh, okay.
yes, I wrapped it up, and I thought, you know what? I always knew I wanted to do economics. That was always the thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, they make you take certain credits of chemistry and science and all of those other things. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm going to be an economist. I'm going to run a business. I'm going to be in business. Why do I need this stuff? So, you know, I was like, I'm going to coast by. Well, that's the lesson learned in coasting by, and a lesson learned that hard work pays off.
Yeah.
And it really gave me such a great platform in terms of understanding the concept and stuff, that the rest of the classes were breeze. And as I was senior, I had time to kill because nobody wanted to hire me. I wasn't 21 yet.
That's hilarious. So you had to be 21 to get a job.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't really go to a company function if you're not able.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, that's funny. All right, so after you graduated, you had to hang out for a while, but then did you start out immediately in procurement after you got out?
You know what? I dabbed in different fields. I did do procurement almost immediately after going into the workforce, and I was part of this transitional assignment, I guess. Every 3 months, you would rotate into a different role. Well, my first rotation was procurement. I honestly didn't know much about it, and to tell you that I went to school thinking I'm going to make a living out of procurement would be a gigantic lie. So I fell into this as first rotational assignment, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I love the fact that procurement actually touches every element of the company, whether you're doing marketing or it's manufacturing or it's product or it's professional services or technology. You're part of it. You see exactly how certain elements and certain dimensions of the firm work. And part of this is you're able to contribute and help them with their bottom line. And I just thought, wow, how cool. You actually get a chance to get your fingers into everything. And I stuck with it. I loved it. Early on, had a couple of patents in procurement, and at that point still was writing some historical papers and doing that kind of stuff. So that was my foray into procurement, and it's been like that.
I knew that you had patents.
2, yes.
Can you tell us what they are, or would we even understand?
Oh, of course you would. Please. It's if I can come up with it, then most people can probably think of it. As a matter of fact, I think most of them are going to be like, well, I could have thought of that way better. The first one was honestly, remember .com boom, early 2000s, right?
Yep.
Lots of companies going digital, lots of transformation happening.
I actually sold a company, a .com company, right before the .com bubble burst.
Exactly.
Smart move. Smart move. Now, the question is, did you?
And then they tried to give it back when the .com bubble burst, but I didn't want it anymore. So I got them to give it to somebody else. But that's totally off topic. Okay, so it was around the .com bubble bursting time?
Yeah, so a lot of companies were interested in partnering up with suppliers and evaluating them online and things like that. But there was always this element of risk and supplier pre-qualification, and do they meet financial standards? Do they meet performance standards? Things like that. So the first patent was really aimed to address the situation of how do you assess your supplier if you've never met them, and if you're purely conducting business electronically and at that point online, right? So what were some of the key components? How do you make sure they're going to be around for a long time? How do you measure their performance? Things like that. So that was number one. And then number two was for more of an inventory controls and an inventory management process to eliminate basically the need for massive storage of parts, products, and like service goods at plants. So to help out with the just-in-time delivery. So that was the second one.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, and my cousin who is here with me. So if y'all hear womp 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 womp, that's her. Anyway, I heard her say, "I don't even know what procurement means." But it's funny because a lot of people don't know what it means, or people who think they know what it means what they immediately think of is laying off people, cutting budgets to the bone, just total cost cutting. But that is not what it's about. So I want you to explain to people what procurement is really about and the way that you approach it.
Awesome. And then I want your cousin to tell us whether I did a decent job explaining what it is and if it made sense or not.
Okay.
So we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That will be.
Oh, wait. And she said, talk to her like she's a 5-year-old. And by the way, her 86-year-old mother's with her, so we might get her to also see it.
Mama asked me too. What is procurement?
Yeah, she did. She said her mom said, "What is procurement?" Anyway, I'm sorry. So,
all right. So at the core, procurement is acquisition of goods and services in a tactical way. It is literally just the execution on what's needed. Now, my definition of procurement is a little bit different. I think it's actually a strategic support function that aligns with organizational goals to help companies and organization achieve what their desires are. And that means sourcing for value, not just the price, better results in terms of services and products, better suppliers, better overall value creation. To me, it's not about the lowest cost. Cost is one component, but you need to obtain the value, because if you're purely going after the lowest cost, well, you know what? There's that truism that you may get the lowest value too, or lowest quality, right? But for instance, if a product gives you a competitive advantage, it's actually best for you to invest in it, get competitive advantage. You may not pay the lowest price for that product, but if it sets you apart from your competitors and helps you achieve your business goals and objectives and sets your firm apart, you've created a good value.
Yeah.
So, to me, it's a support function. Very few organizations are built around procurement, but it should be a strategic support function. You got to understand.
Yeah, I was going to say it needs to be used strategically. And some of the examples that you've told me before are great examples for people to be able to understand what you mean. Because I know from our conversations before, your clients end up, even when they save money, they may still be with the same vendor as they were before, but they may just be getting better terms, or you may have figured out like the times that they should order. And because you work with such big clients as well as small clients, the small clients basically get to piggyback on the goodwill of the big clients, right? With vendors.
Yeah, you're right. But you know what? I think a lot of smaller clients make a bit of a fatal mistake in terms of thinking that they may not be the size and scope in order to leverage the benefits of procurement. They kind of sell themselves short and think, wow, we're just too small for this stuff. The fact is, there's no such thing. If you know how to properly position yourself and leverage your market value and leverage your market worth, you discover that the size, sure, from the basic perspective, is a component of the overall negotiation, but it doesn't need to be. You need to figure out what your leverage points are, what your strengths are, what do you contribute to that supplier that you're partnering with, and in essence, finding out your own value in the process. Actually, some of the biggest savings that we've seen since starting Innovate have come from the small companies. One of our smaller clients, who's just over $1 million in revenue, we've achieved 46% savings and continuity of supply in their space.
Wow.
That to me is just absolutely incredible. So it goes to prove that if you think about the concepts the right way, if you think about it strategically, if you think about it creatively, and you ultimately align it with the desires of that company and their goals, you can achieve some incredible results.
And that 46%, to clarify, it wasn't just on one thing. It was basically the ingredients for their product, right?
Correct. To be quite honest,
that is huge.
It was massive. If you think about it, if you're a business, can you imagine cutting half of your expenses or cutting your expenses in half and getting clarity of primary supplier, secondary supplier, and making sure that you have better payment terms and everything else? I mean, the benefits are tremendous. We could have achieved even slightly higher results, north of 50%. But we felt that that degree of change would have been too disruptive for the client. So we actually recommended slightly smaller degree of savings, although certainly quite significant, but just to make sure that we're not disrupting the entirety of their supply chain, introducing too many risks or unknown. And I just spoke with their owner a couple of weeks ago, and she said everything's still in place. She's still seeing the savings. Pricing is where she wants to be, and she's getting great results.
That's great. Tell them about the company that you had told me before about the MacBooks, the laptops that they needed to.
Oh yeah, that's another example. That's a pretty good example, Lisa, where I think it shows these smaller and mid-sized companies that it's not just a volume play. Sure, if you're ordering 10,000 laptops, you're probably going to get a pretty good deal, irrespective of which company you go to. Well, this client of ours, they're in marketing space and they wanted MacBooks, right? So they're saying, average MacBook we're looking at was about $2,400. We think we can get it for 22. We'll hire you guys if you can get us a better rate than $2,200. So, I go through my spiel in terms of, hey, this is more than just the cost. It's about value. It's all of that stuff. Anyhow, I think it's just a lot of empty words. Where do you get the results? So we actually negotiated not only just corporate discount for them and enabled them to buy future volumes at pre-negotiated rates and discount structure, but ensured they have AppleCare support, aligned leasing based on their refresh cycle needs. So in this case, 36 months. And then took advantage, since it was earlier in 2020 and the pandemic was just starting, some tax credits and benefits that got to place for smaller to mid-sized companies. So combined all of that, reached out to lessors who put an operating lease in place so that it would have a favorable tax treatment, and basically got this client to pay $34.60 per laptop per month, 6 months of payments waived. So
$34.60 per month for Mac.
That's right.
Crazy.
Yeah, with full AppleCare, and after 3 years, you get a new one. And the coolest part was, this was a play for only 5 laptops. So,
oh my gosh, 5 laptops, and you got them that kind of deal?
Yeah. So whatever is needed now, they can literally just create another schedule and save money that way. So we grant them the autonomy in the process and ensure that our results are sustainable as we're doing.
That the amount of money that they saved, I can't even begin to calculate, because just one would have been $2,500, and they would have been either paying it up front or financing it. And they have $36.40 lease. Is that it for 3 years?
Operating lease.
And 6 months waived. And then at the end of 3 years, they get new ones. So you have the ongoing cost, but my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to implement that creativity. That's where I'm saying there's this element of strategy. What is it that you're actually trying to accomplish, right? How do you use this stuff? What if it gets scratched and things like that? So solve for all of their key problems, get them the best result. To be quite honest, we've gotten 8 statements of work subsequent to that. So they keep coming back. They've been one of our most loyal customers. And we've also been very fortunate that we've had 100% client retention and 100% repeat business. So folks come back once they see the value.
What is your average ROI for clients?
It's through 2020, it was 17x. So every dollar spent on us, they've seen $17 back in terms of savings or cost avoidance.
That is amazing.
Lisa, don't assume people know what ROI
Oh,
is.
well, these people do, but return on investment. Well, they're entrepreneurs, so I hope they do. Christina said, don't assume they know what ROI is, but they might not.
Return on investment, right? So for every dollar invested in our services, they see 17 in terms of reduction of their cost.
That is amazing. So another one that I remember you telling me about before is, and these are just ones that have stuck in my brain, the company with the travel budget.
Yeah.
That you saved them, they had a $22 million annual spend, right?
That's right. That's right. And we've gotten about $8 million in savings annually for them.
That's crazy. And one of the big things that I remembered was, because I assume, okay, fine, if you're saving that kind of money, then they're needing to book their flights way out in advance. But they didn't. It was still the same way they always traveled, right?
That's right. Actually, you know, in their case, one of the reasons why they were seeing such large expense and having difficulty controlling this particular commodity and the expense was the fact that their folks had their own culture value set, and it was difficult to change. They would book their travel around their clients based on business needs, things like that. So changing their mind and changing how they're consuming this product was really not an option, or we would have encountered great resistance. So we actually went and surveyed, hey, what are your travel habits like? When do you typically book? How often do you change these travel dates? Do you consume in-flight Wi-Fi? Do you like access to clubs and membership perks and those types of things? So we then actually approached key airlines and hotels and explained to them what the requirements are for this client, and created really a bespoke mechanism, if you will, for them to consume it at pre-negotiated rates, at their leisure, understanding, and with no need to change really their minds and their thoughts, who they're going with, really very minimal change in terms of where they were staying and which airlines they were flying, because there's this emotionality of travel. People like they like their benefits. That was back when travel, existed. So hopefully it'll come back someday. But opportunities like that still exist. You actually look for it now. You look at leverages that you have, companies that are thinking forward and investing in their business models and thinking post-pandemic in terms of how things develop, which direction they're heading, what are their business needs going to be, what do things look like, are actually in an incredible position to dictate not only the performance of their suppliers, but to almost control their costs and to dictate how the market around them adjusts to their specific needs. It's fantastic to recognize where you have leverage. I think those who are attempting to keep the lights on or are just attempting to survive the pandemic and get to things afterwards, in many elements are already behind the ball, and they're missing out on the ability to reap the results when the economy and when everything else gets back.
A couple of really big mistakes that I've seen companies make. One was a company that the owners decided they wanted to sell. And they did what way too many owners do. They just tried to slash costs so that their bottom line would look great. And it ended up that the quality suffered, employee morale went down. And whenever you're approaching it like that, inevitably revenue ends up being hit also. So that's one thing. And then another company that I know that was in the marine industry, they decided they were going to buy this one part from China because they could save quite a bit. It was a, I don't want to say what the product was, but it was a part that they could save quite a bit on. And it seems like it's a minor part, but it literally could be the difference in your boat falling off in the highway when you're going down, hauling it. Anyway, they got this part in from China. They had bought, I don't know how many thousand of them to get this really low price. and they were horrible. The part literally bent because it was such poor quality. So then that put them behind in production. They lost all the money on that because, oh, really? What are you going to do? It's not, what are you going to do? Go over there to China and demand your money back? So they lost all that money. They lost a lot of time in production. They had dealers unhappy, customers. I mean, it was just an avalanche of negative things. And that's what happens when you're only looking at cutting costs.
Correct. Or if you're playing a procurement professional on TV, right? Most of us throughout our lives have negotiated something, some aspect, or procured major purchase and things like that. But there's a big difference between executing on that and dedicating your life and professional career to it. There's an element of sophistication. There's an element of just spatial awareness of how you construct these things. And the examples that you brought are not really that shocking. I've seen organizations who have similarly made decisions like that without, for instance, accounting that the parts are going to spend a couple of months in transit, especially if they're metal parts, and they're going to rust. So are you going to put a rusty part into a new product? Probably not, right? So by the time you add the rework component, the rejected parts based on quality, the fact that you've actually just terminated the agreements with the existing suppliers here onshore, created a complete mess. And oftentimes they have a hard time going back to the same suppliers whom they've just said no to, thinking they're on this magic source. Or worst case, sometimes they put these suppliers out of business. So good luck resurrecting bankrupt suppliers or suppliers who've suffered as a result of your actions. So I think you got to visualize the entirety of the chain and then find out what the opportunity is,
Yeah, that's a great point. I think my internet connection here might be a little slow because you froze a little bit. So I apologize if I talked over you.
No problem.
Can you tell me, like, one of your, besides the ones we talked about, one of your favorite projects that you've had, or maybe the one that's been the biggest surprise to you, or the most fun, or without talking about who it is and giving up anything like that?
Well, one of my favorite projects was it was a couple of years ago, but I still remember it. I think it had all the right components of just a fantastic business strategy. It was the goal was to centralize how a global organization runs its procurement and how they're consuming some of the services, and at the same time outsource part of it, right? So if you're looking at it, it has all those elements of like potentially scary outcomes, right? You're centralizing it, so that means that you're going to pick global suppliers. How do you manage global suppliers? Do you always have to fly out to these remote part of the world? Outsourcing, does that mean you're going to have massive layoffs and people are not going to be happy, and those types of things? So we created a strategy that basically centered around 2 global suppliers who were able to sustain their entirety of the footprint, ensure they have business continuity in place, particularly if they're doing centers in potentially just like geographically unstable areas due to tsunamis or earthquakes or things like that, making sure the data is not lost. And then most importantly, looking out for the employees, right? What do we do and what are we going to do? In this instance, there were about 800 people who were going to be impacted by this outsourcing initiative. Well, we made sure that no single person lost their job. It was not outsourcing and then job losses. It was actually rebadging in this case. And we announced it in such way that folks would keep their vacation, their benefits, same basically look and feel of what they were going. They were just going to go work for another company, a very reputable company. So it wasn't like they were downgraded. And just the testament to how successful the project was and how it was executed. For 800 spots that were needed to transition, there were over 1,200 applicants. So people were voluntarily looking to take advantage of something like this. And the return on investment in this case was 34%. So it was a pretty significant outsourcing initiative, still in place, still ongoing. So it was a fun project. And it also took me to some cool parts of the world. Love to travel, so this helped out as well.
So what are some of the countries that you've traveled to for business?
I've gone to a lot of countries for business. I think the grand total between business and pleasure is 118. But
Oh my gosh.
it's I think I would probably say it's about a 50-50 split in terms of conducting work and just going for pleasure. Pleasure tends to be a little bit more off the beaten path.
Yeah.
But even for work, I've gone to places like Palau and some other interesting locations that were just fascinating experience and some great humbling learning business skills in terms of conducting business in different cultures.
That's really cool. Now, and I know that the people that you have working with you, I think you said they're all MBAs and a majority of them are veterans. Is that right?
I absolutely love the team. We are 16 folks strong. So far, 100% of our folks have a graduate degree or 2 or 3. So lots of highly skilled folks. Everybody is very experienced. Out of 100% who have all graduate degree, we have about 60% of our folks are veterans. Many of them service disabled. Many of them highly, highly decorated.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. And out of those, 30% are PhDs. So in terms of understanding data and analytics and having really folks who are qualified to look after your business in the same way as if we would look at it if it was ours, those are the types of people we get. And super proud of them. And our clients love them too.
That's so cool. And hey, y'all, and if you're working with Mark and Innovate, you end up kind of not paying them because your return on investment is more than you're paying them. So it's like they have this freebie to help have your awesome team helping them.
It really is a fantastic team. Easy folks to engage, and obviously we'll let the results speak for themselves. That's the most important thing for us. As you've indicated, Lisa, we have not been around for decades. We've been around basically since 2019 and really had an interesting year to cut our teeth on in terms of operational year of 2020. But, at least we want to be known for ethics, our integrity, our collaboration, our approach to the clients, and the results that we're able to quantify and produce. And not just results in terms of we're going to put a great deal in place that's not sustainable. The sustainability of it. Because you were talking about these parts coming from China and stuff. It's just a bad solution. Because
it was a nightmare. It was so bad, and it hurt the company. It hurt their customers. It hurt their customers' customers. I mean, it was terrible, and it was so short-sighted that those of us who knew they were making the decision, we knew that it was not a good decision even before it even happened. It's like, at least do it a little bit. But they went in whole hog, and just ordered thousands and thousands of parts, thinking what a great deal it would be. And it took way longer for them to arrive than they had been promised. And then they were all just terrible. They had to be thrown away. And then, like you said, good luck reaching out to the vendors that you ditched. Because as you said, they might not be in business anymore, but if they are, do you think that they're not really in the mood to give you a great deal or give you fast turnaround?
Well, that's it. I think a lot of companies also, I think even if you look at the vernacular, right, in terms of how you're referring to your partners, a lot of them refer to them as suppliers. Or vendor. Actually, I should say a lot of them refer to them as vendors. Vendor is you put a quarter in, you get a product out.
Exactly. Yeah.
The supplier is your strategic partner. They need to be aligned with what your goals are. What are their goals? Do you even understand where they're going? Are they going to be around for you? Are they merging? Are they being acquired? Do you understand who you're actually partnering with? That's the strength of the relationship. And then second piece, a lot of folks are afraid, just deathly afraid of communicating what they perceive is negative messaging to their suppliers.
Yeah.
They're hiding it.
They don't trust them because they haven't built that kind of relationship with them.
Right. Or if your relationship and your feedback to them is not based in actual performance and data and logic, and it's not believable, of course, no one's going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
You're speaking the truth, much like you would talk truth to your friend and be like, hey, that shirt, change that. If, a different color would look better on you, they'll take it because they know it's coming from a good place. And if you can justify it,
Yeah.
Actually strengthen that relationship. You would show them that you care about them, that they're not just dispensable part of you running your operation, but they are a truly meaningful component in the overall output that will listen more and they will provide value to. They'll even come back and give you suggestions where you can save money. Happens all the time. The worst thing you can do is hide underperformance and then turn it around and somehow terminate them, which is a shock to them. And they don't even have a chance to fix.
Yeah. So I know you're writing a book now, right?
True, correct.
What's about the book? What's the title?
Well, the working title is Transformative Procurement, and it's really focused on some of the basic principles and most frequently asked questions of what constitutes successful procurement for any size company.
Okay.
We're writing it from the lens of smaller to mid-sized companies and some of the perceived deficiencies that we're seeing and advantages they could take. But most importantly, really showing the readers what the full scope and extent of procurement is, that it's not, and it shouldn't be viewed as a bastardized function that just creates the set of rules and responsibilities and really is, a 12th hour deal dynamiter in terms of just making sure that things are not happening, but leading you through that process, being that strategic partner, enabling you to focus on your core competencies while procurement, whether it's in-house or outsourced through companies like ours, drives value. So we're addressing subjects like what company size has to do with your ability to achieve the right results. Things like how do you structure your processes? How do you manage and monitor supplier performance? How do you ensure that you're getting the right ROI? What about timing? What about supplier skin in a game? How do you even structure the right elements of procurement in terms of just buying, sourcing, analytics and data, what systems are needed? How do you handle outsourcing? And just looking at even some of the fallacies, like you need to have certain revenue size in order to start seeing benefits or communication to supplier, much like we talked right now, in terms of what do you communicate to your suppliers and when.
Yeah. By the way, a second ago, I lost the connection. So I don't know if y'all saw that or not. I lost my internet connection. So I apologize for that. So who would be the target readers? Obviously management, but also business owners, entrepreneurs.
Business owners, entrepreneurs, I even think some of the procurement professionals.
Yeah.
Procurement professionals in terms of references to what skills and elements are needed to drive good results and how to make sure that you never become complacent in your own profession in terms of always developing new ways of doing it and getting the courage to apply lessons learned and best practices and how to think in a practical way to solve for those situations you may not have encountered in the past. Look, procurement could stretch anything from benefits to pens and paper, to buying corporate aircraft, to buying food ingredients, travel, technology, anything else. So chances are that in your life, you're probably going to encounter buying something you haven't bought before. But there are these principles, lessons learned, time-proven methodologies that you can apply to help you drive in a good direction and achieve things, but always, always, always tie it to the organizational goals and perspectives to make sure that you're not solving for something in a vacuum. Just because you build something doesn't mean people will come.
Yeah.
You have to build it based on spec. Yeah. And in addition to the folks you said, I honestly hope that even procurement professionals will find it as a good refresher and a source of some good ideas and tips how to run it well.
Well, I think some internal procurement professionals, it also can provide them with the tools and the knowledge to actually get their company to buy into doing some of these things, because probably even if some of the procurement professionals know they should be doing things like this, you kind of have the old-fashioned view of it. I mean, I know when back in the 80s and I worked in a manufacturing environment and they called it purchasing.
That's right.
Straight up purchasing, and they just don't look at it in this holistic way. That's what I love about the way that you approach it holistically, not as purchasing this thing over here, but you approach it within the sphere of the entire business, the business structure, the culture, the products, and everything.
Thanks for that, Lisa. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think over the past several years, there's been this transition from purchasing, then it grew into global purchasing. All right, now we're taking advantage of what's outside of the box. Then it really morphed into strategic sourcing, the elements of negotiation, looking at outsourcing elements. And this is what constitutes the totality of it. Like, what systems do you need? What metrics, what analytics do you run? What value does your company actually produce? You know, sometimes I talk to folks in the field and I hear, they've saved 30% every year for the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, there's this math equation that works going, wow, if you're saving 30% every year and you've been doing it for 10 years, aren't you coming pretty damn close to like getting that part for free?
I know, really.
So how are you actually measuring the contribution? So it's these like, if you will, smoke and mirrors tricks that unsophisticated procurement teams and departments do that I think leave a bad taste for everybody else, right? In terms of like, is it really real? So when Mark said 46% savings on raw materials in food and beverage, is it real? What is it based on? I view savings as year-over-year reduction. So yes, they're real. I'm not saying that they're going to see another 46% next year. Walk it in for a couple of years and get the rates in. So I think there's just so many elements and aspects of how to run it well and how to justify and actually properly quantify the savings, tie it back into your FP&A and tie it back into your budgets, that you're seeing now procurement as a true value add, not just a necessary cost center. So when Lisa wants to go buy something, Mark here is either going to rubber stamp it or give her a hard time, but Mark's actually going to work with Lisa to enable Lisa to buy it from the best source at a best price under best terms and conditions, while Lisa focuses on her own core competency, whether that's coding, and as you indicated before, or it's marketing or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I'm sure that a lot of your smaller clients don't even have procurement people within the company. It's probably usually the accountant or the owner or whoever that actually makes the decisions. But I imagine a lot of your larger clients, even though they have their own procurement departments, they will still hire you to come in to work because you have experience, a different experience set than the people internally. And so they're able to supplement their own experience with yours. It's not like you're threatening that internal procurement department by doing something they can't do and so making them unnecessary. You're actually augmenting it, helping them do a better job.
100%. You know, I think you're really hitting on two elements that have been particularly challenging, if you will, as we were growing the firm and as we're basically breaking into a space that very few competitors, if any, with a set of capabilities and skills that we have play in. Some of the smaller clients, frankly, appear to be terrified of engaging with us, right? Yeah. From the perspective, not that they don't necessarily want to save money, they do, particularly when they're owner-operator led, but they're looking at it and saying, what's the true value in this? Practices of like, kicking suppliers to the curb because you just found a new source. Or, you're claiming you're getting these phenomenal savings, but you're not. You've actually given procurement a little bit of a bad reputation. Yeah. Some of them are looking at it and saying, is it really real? Does this really exist? And then some of their folks, not necessarily decision makers, feel threatened saying, well, if this company is brought on, what happens with my job? Yeah. The fact is, nobody has gotten fired based on what we've done. Many of them who have been very apprehensive about engaging with us have thanked us, said, wow, you're actually very easy to work with. Our job is to make their jobs easier and frankly, to make them look like rock stars, right? We're here to help them look good and drive results for the firm. With the larger ones, you're absolutely right. Sometimes we serve in a subject matter expertise where we can provide value and service that they don't necessarily have internally. And it doesn't make sense, for instance, to hire somebody full-time to address that because the need may not be constant, may not, warrant somebody full-time, or they may have, frankly, so many objectives and priorities in a plate that they're really running out of bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
Particularly depending on how they're structured. A lot of organizations have access to some great data. And it's not the data that makes difference. You can buy trillion different software. You can buy different reporting and analytics tools. But ultimately, if you don't know what to do with that data, what does it mean to you and how does it impact your business? You don't have someone coaching you and guiding you through it. You won't be able to make the best decision.
Yeah.
And that's where in general, we find folks who are very open to us saying, producing that element of, so what? What do we do with all of this stuff? I often correlate it to having memberships to 10 different gyms and not going to any.
Yeah.
It won't get you in a better shape. It certainly won't give you a six-pack in times for the summer season. You have to actually do something with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's in essence what many organizations do. They buy all these wonderful products and they're like, we have this, we have this, we have this. Okay, so what? What do you do with it?
Yeah.
Where are the results?
That's right. Show me the money.
Show me the money. You know, at the end of the day, if you're owner of a business and you're running an operation team, a department, you're engaging with us, you ultimately want to see a positive outcome, a return on what you're investing your money in. Honestly, procurement is not something that every organization should have. It's something that every organization can benefit from. You don't necessarily have to have it in-house. If it ends up costing you more money than what you're seeing being brought in through by creating value for you, you should think, should this department really exist? Should it be supplemented or substituted by somebody else? And what the right equations are. So at the end of the day, healthy procurement organizations and those who are seeing investments should be seeing somewhere between 4 and 7x ROI. Again, on us, or at least what we've seen internally, is 17. So I think we're blowing those stats out of the water and continue that way.
And I know you have clients across the spectrum in types of industries. I know we've talked about technology companies, health, medical, food companies. What are some other industries?
We have insurance, we have legal, we have banking, we have fintech, technology, marketing, government sector. That's another one, as well as municipalities. So it's really a broad gamut, about 27 different industries and about 24 different commodities that we touch. So it's exciting. I love the fact there's always something new, a new challenge, something that keeps us on our feet, and something that we can think about. It's not just an automatic result of something. So it's always new and it's always fun. It's
like solving a puzzle, but a new puzzle every time.
That's right. I honestly think you got to keep yourself motivated and engaged and entertained in what you're doing. And obviously, again, in business, you got to produce some results, right? If I'm costing you oodles of money, Lisa, and I'm producing nothing back, well, you know, wouldn't pass the red face test. But if we're doing the right approach and we're producing value to you, that's honestly the concept. And I honestly hope that more and more companies would recognize the value proposition on both sides of this equation.
Well, I cannot wait for the book. I'm really excited to hear that you're writing it because I didn't realize it until tonight. So tell everybody how they can find out more about you and Innovate Holdings. And I assume that also go there to find out about the book when it's ready.
Yeah. So I anticipate that the book's probably going to be ready at some point in Q3 of this year. I think we're about 90% done writing it. And of course, it'll be a lot of editing because you never know what late night writing produces from my side. So we'll make sure that everything matches nicely. But additional information about the firm and some of our results and our approach and what we do is on our website. It's www.innovateholdingsgroupllc.com. A bit of a mouthful, but if you'll spell it all out, it'll tell you.
Yeah.
Innovate Holdings on LinkedIn and Innovate Holdings on Instagram. So we tend to publish some cool stories there in terms of the approach, in terms of what we've accomplished for the industries. And most importantly, if you're on a website, you have the info button there and contact, so you can reach out to me directly, folks on the team, and we can just chat and figure out what's the best way to accomplish some of the results and benefit your firm.
Yeah, and if y'all want to connect with Mark on LinkedIn, his last name is spelled Milen, right? Milen, Mark Milen. So yeah, connect with him, and if you haven't connected with me, connect with me on there too.
Please do.
So Mark,
And go on Lisa's show too.
what?
And go on Lisa's show.
Oh yes, come on! I love having great guests like you, Mark.
You've asked some fantastic questions, and you've always been a pleasure to interact with and to share business ideas. And I don't even know if I ever told you, but you've been a great source of encouragement. You mentioned the book. You were one of the first people who, when we started talking to last year, indicated and suggested book. And I thought, well, that would be such a cool idea, but how long is that going to take?
Yeah.
And truly, you've known it. You're a published author. It's a labor of love, but so worth it. So thank you for the encouragement. Thanks for your leadership and guidance through some of the tough moments. Every startup has them. You question your sanity. You question if you're doing it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the results and your clients who make it all worthwhile, and getting a simple thanks or seeing them realize these results is just fascinating. So it makes it worthwhile, and thanks for the opportunities, Lisa.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'm so grateful that we met last year through George, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and so y'all, the way that I met Mark, for those of y'all that know me, I work with the NASCAR team, NASCAR driver Colin Garrett, and we race to combat veteran suicide. And one of the veterans that Mark works with, he met me because of the team through LinkedIn, and he introduced me to Mark. So that's how we met. So that's the thing, y'all. You just network, get to know people, and you never know who you're going to meet. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the past year.
Likewise, and hopefully you've seen our growth and progression. And if I'm kind of reflecting back on the past several months, it seems that our company becomes new and introduces new elements and gets new vigor and energy every quarter or so. And it's phenomenal to see that element of growth, and not just expressed in terms of number of folks we have on the team, but obviously expressed in terms of our maturity and things that we're offering, and sophistication of how to tackle some of the issues, and when necessary, simplify it for maybe smaller organizations to actually understand. It's not, to your cousin's point, it's not about the fancy lingo and the acronyms and confusing people and just, baffling them with BS, if you will. It's about results, and it's about being people, and it's working with those you like, and joining them in driving the best transformative results for the firm. It's the transformation that should be at the DNA, at the core of every organization. And it's so fascinating and refreshing to see those transformation leaders like yourself and others I've met through you and through your program.
Thank you.
Just talk and drive this degree of change. It's just wonderful.
Well, thank you. And y'all, if you are working with somebody, and it doesn't matter what type of professional, what their expertise is in, but if you're working with an expert and they are not able to explain to you in real language what they are doing for you, how they can help you, so forth and so on, you need to run, because that, in my opinion, that means that they don't really even understand themselves if they're not able to simplify it in a way. And that's why I always say no gobbledygook. Look, you got to be able to explain it to anybody in a way that they can understand.
Without a doubt, Lisa. I think ultimately it's about common sense and logic.
Yes.
There are a few elements that may show your organizational sophistication or you're addressing things and stuff like that. But ultimately, sophistication by itself is not going to turn results. Nothing falls out of the sky. You have to work on it. It's the common sense. It's the pursuit of what makes your company great. What sets you apart from your competitors? What value proposition do you have that I believe drives the value and attracts the right talent to your company?
Well, thanks again for joining me tonight. And if y'all enjoyed this show, go to my site, LisaKipps-Brown.com, and you can watch all of the past shows. Amy's a friend of mine. She's also a veteran. She said she appreciates that clarity is king. So thanks for joining us, Amy, and I'll talk with you soon, Mark. Thanks.
My pleasure as always. Thanks for having me on. Have a
Okay.
great day.
Bye-bye.